Welcome to this week's edition of New York Now. I'm Dan Clark. We start this week with a short history lesson on abortion in New York. Until 3 years ago, abortion was actually part of New York's criminal law. It was legal, but in a sort of roundabout way. It goes back to 1970, when New York first lifted its ban on abortion. It was one of only 2 states to do so at the time. But before that, abortion was a crime in New York. And instead of taking it out of the criminal law, lawmakers left it in and largely just carved out when it would be legal. And at the time, that was a really big deal. The first freestanding abortion center in the country opened in Syracuse that year. Then, 3 years later, the U.S. Supreme Court legalized abortion nationwide under Roe v. Wade. And for the next 5 decades, not much changed in New York. That was until 3 years ago, in 2019. Democrats in New York were worried at the time that Roe v. Wade would be overturned by the Supreme Court. So they passed a bill that basically enshrined Roe v. Wade into state law and took it out of the penal code. That means that if the Supreme Court overturns Roe, which we now know is on the table this year, abortion will still be legal in New York. And because of that, Democrats are now expecting people to start coming here from out of state to get an abortion. So the state is setting aside $35 million to support abortion providers and expand access. Governor Kathy Hochul this week.
We'll keep playing offense. It's where I'm most comfortable on the playing field, being aggressive on these issues, and we'll do whatever it takes to defend the rights of not just New York women, but women all across this nation. New York will be there.
And we're now expecting the legislature to do more on abortion this year, plus some new political developments. Let's get into it with Anna Grunwald from Politico and David Lombardo from the Capitol Press Room. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
So we have 3 weeks of the legislative session left, I think, after this. It's all approaching very quickly. Abortion seems to be the topic that Democrats can come together on right now. That seems to be one of the very few things that they can agree on that they want to protect access to in New York. Anna, what does it look like in terms of what they're going to do in the next few weeks? Do we know anything about what they're going to do?
There's been a number of bills proposed that would expand access in ways that would allow more financial resources to individuals even coming from out of state, because abortion in New York is already fairly available, and it will probably stay that way. But as the governor and legislature have suggested, they want that to be a thing that they can offer to people maybe from other states if it should change in their regions. So whether or not they'll get some of these pieces of legislation done always remains to be seen, but it does seem to be something that everyone can rally around, and it might provide them some cover from doing some things that they don't want to do.
Right, that's what I was going to ask you. Does this seem to be the end of session issue now? There were a lot of things on the table, but abortion seems to be the thing that Democrats, as we said, can come together on, whereas something like maybe crime, they can't come together on. Does this seem to be maybe a placeholder for other issues that might have put them in some political hot water if they had gone forward? Absolutely.
It's an election year, and there's always a little bit of an energy lag after the budget is passed. So there are a couple of things that they need to do. If they are going to extend mayoral control of New York City schools, that's something that they would need to do before the end of session, a few other things like that. But this seems to be the major issue, and if you can get all eyes on something everyone agrees on, what a beautiful way to end.
Exactly. Dave, I want to go to you on politics. So abortion is popular in New York. I think that it's fair to say that most New Yorkers do not want to see Roe v. Wade overturned in terms of polling. So, but my question for you is that enough to put Democrats in a better position politically this year?
Well, running on that issue that you brought up is something that will benefit Democrats, but it's more complicated when you think about abortion in different senses. When you talk about late-term abortion, when you talk about when you're going to make money available for out-of-state abortions, those things might not poll as politically beneficial to Democrats. So it's going to be interesting to see now and through now and November how they go about framing this issue, because how they frame it is really going to be important to whether it actually is beneficial to them. If I'm the Republicans, I'm trying to make this not just about Roe v. Wade, but about other things such as the cost of actually raising a child in New York, which is becoming more and more expensive every day. Maybe not the fault of New York Democrats, but that's the framing I'm focusing on. So Democrats have a real tight rope they have to walk here, but it could be advantageous, especially in the suburbs, where Kathy Hochul really needs to run up the score if she wants to have a big victory in November.
Right. To me, I see this issue as very important to voters, obviously, but I don't know if it necessarily is more important than top issues like crime and cost of living. Like, I don't know if you get to November as Kathy Hochul versus whoever the Republican nominee is, assuming that she wins the Democratic nomination. I don't know if you get to November and you swing the votes based on abortion. What do you think?
Yeah, this is typically a federal issue. This isn't something we really think of on the state level because of, as Anna said, the broad protections and accessibility that we have in New York. So I think this is something where if I'm a member of Congress, if I'm a Senate candidate, not necessarily in New York, I'm going to make a big deal about this. If I'm a member of the Assembly, if I'm a member of the state Senate, I don't think that argument about abortion resonates as much with voters who think about this as a national issue, which it obviously is based on the Supreme Court ruling.
Absolutely. And Anna, I should say before, I think in the next few weeks, as we talk more and more about abortion in New York, I can already see fake things happening online. So are Democrats considering any expansion to the state's access to abortion in terms of weeks when it's allowed, instances when it's allowed? Is that on the table at all?
I don't know that there is a lot of movement on specific bills that would do that, but I don't think anything is out of the question.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a lot on the table, and the thing about this is because we have such progressive abortion laws in New York, there's not a lot more to do here. So it'll be interesting to see what happens when Democrats come together with a package, if they do in the next couple of weeks. I want to turn to Congressman Antonio Delgado, which we were off last week for the show, so I just want to bring this up now. So he's going to be the new lieutenant governor, and he's going to be the new candidate for lieutenant governor. And I want to ask you this first, Anna. So do you think that changes the race for LG? How does it change it? We had the two candidates, Diana Reyna and Ana Maria Archila. Brian Benjamin had to resign, so now he's off the ballot. There's a lot that we could go through with that, but I won't rehash it. Do you think Delgado's a shoo-in?
At this point, I don't know that I would say anyone could be a shoo-in. Obviously, like, he is running with the governor, but it is a separate election. People can choose of the three candidates that we have right now who they would like best. He's a great pick, though, and I think that he comes off, he is charismatic, he is successful, and he has a lot of support now on a national level because obviously he's spent time in Congress. That comes also with resources. So I don't know how voters are feeling about him specifically right now, but he definitely has a solid campaign ahead of him, and the support of the governor, it seems like he has a pretty good shot, and that changes the dynamics for the other two candidates.
Dave, what does Delgado need to do in the next couple of weeks to win this primary? I don't know if he's necessarily all that known to voters. I don't think that they know Diana Reyna or Ana Maria Archila either.
Right.
So I could see as a Democrat, if I was a Democrat voting in the primary, I see these three names. I don't know who any of them are. It feels like I'm throwing a dart at a bullseye, trying to figure it out.
Right, and the thing about a Democratic primary like this is that it is mostly going to be highly engaged, highly active voters who aren't like your typical registered voter, so they might have a better chance of knowing these names. But what Delgado really benefits from is having the backing of the Democratic establishment, which is going to mobilize some of these informed voters whether they come from the actual party apparatus, like at county level and city level, and they'll go out to vote, but also more importantly probably are these labor unions that are so connected to the Democratic Party. And they're going to mobilize on his behalf basically without him even doing anything. That doesn't mean, though, that he can't travel around the state, try to drive up votes in areas where the establishment is going to be better received. I think in the Bronx, which has a large black voting population that's not necessarily as progressive as the black voting population in Brooklyn, is an area where he's going to want to focus on because I think Ana Maria Archila is going to come at him from the left, Diana Reyna is going to come at him from the right, and there's a narrow gap where he can try to drive up the vote. So I think he's going to be hitting all of New York outside of the 19th Congressional District where he is known, but even that I think isn't the best known person in there. So yeah, and if I'm Antonio Delgado, I'm feeling pretty good, but I still need to go through the motions to make sure that I am Kathy Hochul's running mate in November.
You know, we have 30 seconds left. I'll throw this one to you, Anna, just to end with. They're both from upstate, Kathy Hochul and Delgado. Delgado is from upstate in my book. He has a Hudson Valley district. Does that hurt their chances?
I think it depends on whether or not they can get out and get their names around downstate. I don't think that it is bad that they are from north of the Bronx, but I do think that they need to get to where voters are, and they need to get their message out on the ground, and I don't know that they've necessarily broken through there yet.
Yeah, I guess we'll see. Well, thank you both for being here. I appreciate it. Anna Grodwell from Politico and David Lombardo from the Capitol Press Room on Public Radio. Thank you.